Dale has inside knowledge and the courage to name names. I haven't done that. I think you will really love this episode. I think it's very important for anyone who owns gold and especially IRAs. Dale, welcome to the show, my man. Glad you're here.
Andy, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Dale. For those people who don't know what you're all about, what your mission is, you've recently stepped into the spotlight by exposing what you call deeply unethical practices. I would say it's far deeper than deep. It's some of the worst things I've ever seen in my career. In fact, probably the worst things I've ever seen in my career. And these practices are in the gold and precious metals industry, obviously. Inside the company, was there ever even a moment of sincere belief that clients were being helped? Or was it purely about profit and scamming people? And to me, that's the question. I mean, was there any sense of ethics or responsibility to the people being sold to?
It was the only responsibility and ethics were to the company. It was never like there was a fiduciary responsibility to the client. I mean, if the fiduciary responsibility was to the client, you'd be selling them bullion. You wouldn't ever sell them a coin that's marked up. One of the gold coins, I still have my product sheet, by the way. I mean, I documented everything. So I have everything. And one of our gold coins was marked up 170%.
Wow.
Right?
I mean, that's just insanity.
It is. And again, people go, well, how... Again, so I want anyone that's listening not to feel bad about this, but I'm just going to give you the general question that is asked when you talk to folks who might know a little bit, right? Because that's the other thing too, they're preying on ignorance, right? Like a lot of folks, even your viewers, don't know a lot about gold, right? They don't know a lot about fractional denominations and so on. So they're calling to get a price from someone that they believe they can trust. And so they're entering this unknown relationship with a level of trust already established because of celebrity or whatever it may be. And they prey on that to sell you these coins. And the first thing that people will say that have not been scammed or have heard this scam, they go, well, how dumb would you have to be, right? Well, it's not about that. It's about sowing discord and confusion by using fractional denominational coins, fast talking you on the phone, and you're not doing the math, converting these things to like a quarter ounce to an ounce and doing the math. And now it does happen. There are folks who go, hold on a second, right? And then those guys usually back out and go on their merry way. But there are a lot of folks out there who are trusting these companies that they're doing the right thing. And a lot of folks don't understand that the gold industry is unregulated, that it doesn't have a Series 8 like a stockbroker does. It doesn't have all of these regulatory requirements and licensing requirements, right? And that's one of the big things that I think could be a solution to the problem. I actually don't think it would solve the problem inherently, but it would certainly be a step in the right direction. But people need to understand, like, a lot of good folks get swindled and smart folks get swindled because of the trust element. And I think that's severely understated. Like, why do you do business with Miles Franklin or with, I don't know, AppMex? Why? Because you trust them, because you have a reputation and people look to you and they know that you're a good person, that you're looking out for their wallet and their best interest. Not, you got to make money along the way, sure, but you're not trying to get rich quick, right? And the difference here is, these guys are relying on low volume, high markup, whereas with you, it's high volume, low markup, right? And those two differentiators are why companies like Augusta can afford to lose 5 clients and pick up $1 million trade, because that the profit offsets itself.
Yeah, they make more money doing 45 million in business than we do doing 800 million. And that is why Minnesota is, even though it's onerous for the companies that do get registered in the state, because whether you're in any state of Washington selling into the state of Minnesota or in the state of Minnesota selling out, you have to be licensed, bonded, and background checked. They are the only state that would drop the hammer on you if this stuff went down and get enough complaints. They would dig into it very quickly. No, Dale, you're amazing, man. And I hope people are, I'm going to call this the most important video gold owners need to listen to all year. And it is. This is so important, because when I started talking about it, I had no idea how profound this is, how widespread this is. I want to ask you a question because there's one custodian. I'm not going to mention them, and you know who they are, and they really piss me off because they promote these companies on their page, on their preferred vendor page. Now, the custodian that I recommend is New Direction in Louisville, Colorado. I get nothing for it. They won't work with the majority of these companies that are promoted on some of the other custodians. But my question to you is this. These custodians that are supposed to be neutral, trusted, third party, in my mind, they're complicit in this. How about in yours? Or are they just turning a blind eye? Or do you think they should be held accountable for enabling this kind of abuse? Because it really bothers me that you have this custodian that's looking out for you and they ain't doing anything about it. In fact, they're promoting them in an odd sort of way. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
I do. So it's interesting you bring this up because this was an angle I hadn't explored until a few months ago. And the only reason I explored it is because once I launched my book and I've been more public and been on Kyle's show and so on, I've gotten attorney requests for information like, hey, will you consult on this case that I'm having? So I got a call from an attorney and he and I are talking and he brought up the same thing. He said, hey, have you ever explored the idea that the custodian has some fiduciary responsibility here? And so, I started thinking through it, and I've started digging into the regulations. So I don't have an answer to you, but there's for you directly. So I don't have an answer legally for you. But I would say, if this were an opinion, I would say, yes, they should have a responsibility, and they should know that if a client transfers, and they do know that when a client transfers $500,000 to Augusta, but then receive assets valued at $300,000 or $250,000, that there's something wrong there, right? I mean, that's just it's insane to think that a custodian would not see 50% of the value disappear overnight from someone's IRA and not ask the question. Okay. Now, the custodian, you brought up a very, very specific word that I think is important here, will say that they are a neutral third party and their requirement is only to report to the IRS and to make sure that you're in compliance within your IRA. Okay.
Right.
Everything else is up to you. This is a self-directed IRA that you need to take control of. We're a neutral third party. You decide who to buy from. We don't, they shouldn't be promoting them, for one.
They do.
And they shouldn't. And for two, they shouldn't be quote unquote partnering with anyone. And that's something that we did. We partnered at Augusta with a company called Kingdom Trust. And there were many out there that work with that. Almost every custodian at some point, like we worked with some folks at New Direction, not by Augusta's choice, but a client had an IRA with New Direction, and we sold them assets or whatever. So I'm glad to hear that New Direction aren't working with a lot of these companies anymore and are dissuading that, and I think that's fantastic. But there are almost every single custodian out there, Equity Trust, Gold Star, all of these companies have administered IRAs for folks who have been defrauded by Augusta. I mean, this is that simple. And
but there's only one of them that promotes them on their webpage, and that I know of, and I find it to be ridiculous, completely and totally ridiculous. And in my estimation, there's certainly some accountability there. It bothers me. That one bothers me.
There's an attorney in Texas that happens to agree with you. So I'm, I haven't spoken to him since, but this is a good reminder. I'm going to reach out to him after we have this conversation and see what he's been able to dig up and what his thoughts are. Because he was adamant. His client lost a few $1 million, and these are the folks that have money to sue and want to sue, and they're just trying to figure out what's the best course of action. And who do we sue, aside from the company, to make sure this doesn't happen again? There are a lot of folks out there, Andy. There are so many.
Oh, hell yeah. I know it because I've been on the same mission as you have, not quite as vocal as you, but I'm the only one in the industry on my side of the table that's banging the gong. One of these custodians, I talked to him, and first they said, well, you're not on our recommended vendor page. I said, well, what does it matter? I said, we do an awful lot of business, and what does it take to get on your recommend? Why are you promoting anyone anyway? None of the other custodians have recommended metals dealers. Why are you? Well, you have to do a certain amount of volume in order to get there. So, when you talk about why are they promoting them, because they're doing all the volume, they're turning a blind eye to what that volume really looks like. And that one particular custodian really pisses me off, to be honest with you, on every single level. And I mean, here again, see, I wish I could just be a little bit more forthright on who they are, but that's the way that it is. I think people can probably figure it out if they really wanted to.